Alright guys, we're back with another video, and this one is a little bit different. It's kind of a change of pace for me. I wanted to cover a topic that's important to me, and I don't think it has gotten the coverage that it really deserves. So a few weeks ago, a user on Twitter called Flosin, who's like a security researcher or a bug bounty hunter. Actually, I'll show you what like the bug bounty program for Valve. I'll kind of go over it here real quick before I get into his tweets, but basically, if you check out the bug bounty program for Valve on the HackerOne website, it shows Valve and lots of other companies, these tech giants kind of thing, they pay out to independent contractors or anybody who wants to test exploits against their system. So in Valve's case, they set out the guidelines if you could find flaws with Counter-Strike or Dota or their website or their store service, and then they have a set amount that they'll pay for it. And they give guidelines on kind of what type of attacks they're looking for. Like they're saying they're not going to pay out if you manage to denial of service us or do a DDoS attack or something like that. That's not really finding a worthwhile exploit. What they want to have people provide to them are software type exploits, right? So did you find a flaw in Steam where you're able to put in another user's username and then steal their Steam wallet money or something like that, right? And then at the bottom here, they kind of show the rewards for what they can pay out. So if they deem it a critical issue, they'll give you $7,500, and then it goes down from there, right? Same with CSGO. If you find a critical issue with CSGO, they'll give you $7,500, and it goes down from there. So when you hear about these security experts like this Flosin guy, that's really what they're in the game for. And some people make a living just doing bug bounty hunting, or going company to company and finding flaws with their security, and then they join the HackerOne program, which is kind of like a coalition or a community type bug bounty hunter type company. The problem was if you were just an individual finding these bugs, the company could ignore you or maybe not pay out the bounty to you. So when you do it through the HackerOne program, you're kind of you're doing it under their umbrella, and they have a little bit more leverage with these companies and publicity that they can bring to it. Say if a company was shady and didn't want to pay out the program. So anyways, this Flosin guy went through the HackerOne program to report a bug or an exploit with Steam. And you can see from his tweet here, he says, recently I've seen some people complaining about long response times for bug bounty programs. Let's play a game. Can you beat one of my recent gems? A wormable single-click RCA, which is a remote code exploit, affecting every Steam user that owns at least one Source Engine game not resolved for 500 days. And then he kind of shows the summary of the bug below that with a severity of 9.0, which is critical. Obviously, having somebody that's doing bug bounty hunting type of work coming out and calling out your company, calling out Valve, is not a great look at all. This bug hunter kept this exploit under wraps and kept it privately to himself with the hopes that he'd be paid out for the bounty and Valve would fix the software, right? But he's been ignored for 500 days, and now he's finally decided to go public to at least get the exploit fixed. He mentioned in another tweet that in his case, it's not that Valve didn't respond at all. They just kept telling him that they were working on it and they were working on it, and then it never got fixed, right? So finally on April 10th of 2021, the Secret Club, which Flosin is a member of, came out publicly and showed what the exploit could do. And I'll show you the video of that right now. So for the exploit, all you have to do is accept a malicious invite to play from someone on your friends list, and then you'll see what gets triggered here. His calculator comes up showing that the user running Windows here did not launch the calculator app. That was done by the malicious third party that sent the friend's invite to him. Just to kind of go over what this does and doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that the person attacking your system has admin privileges, but it is certainly concerning that someone can just send a friend's invite to you and then have the ability to read programs on your system, possibly copy programs on your system. They could, there's ways to pivot to elevate privileges. There's a ton of things you could do on a computer even without admin privileges, and just them having the ability to execute code remotely through just a single click with no installation needed, right? Like everything's done through I assume Steam or the source programmer or CSGO, right? So it's not good. It's really bad. And with Secret Club kind of hitting the news, it brought more people out of the woodwork. There's another guy on Twitter that mentioned he also found an exploit with CSGO, reported it to Valve, and then Valve never did anything to fix it. I'll kind of show his exploit as well. In this one, it required you to connect to a malicious server and then disconnect, close the game. And then when the game was relaunched, the chain would be complete. And then that person would have RCE or remote code exploit privilege on your computer. So kind of a completely different bug than the first one, or a different attack method, I should say. And it's, like I said, this is a really bad look by Valve. The fact that they have so many vulnerabilities seemingly in the hopper or in the chain that they can't seem to get a handle on them. There's actually a couple more out in the wild too if you do a little bit of searching. There's community server exploits where you connect to a bad community server. Well, Valve has had this problem in the past and they've patched some, but like the problems... I mean, the community servers are a real Pandora's box because you're allowing people to have plugins and have the server running locally so it can be dissected. And anytime you're kind of giving out your software, you're letting local people, you know, I could fire up a CSGO server today. It takes like 2 seconds to do. Anytime you're giving out your software and letting people run it as a community like that, there's large benefits. You know, the workshop and the things that we can do on community servers is amazing, and the freedom that we have to work on community servers is just fantastic. But the downside is that software is going to get dissected, and malicious actors may choose to spin up a server and have people connect to it so that they can, you know, maybe infect machines, create a botnet, do malicious things, steal credentials, steal personal identifiable information, all sorts of things. There's lots of downsides to having this kind of community-driven approach, and it seems like Valve, they're trying to get the best of both worlds. They want the community-driven approach, but they want to be hands-off and not really in our business or something. You know, like if you're gonna be all about the community and give us freedom with our own servers, our custom plugins, all the stupid crazy shit that we can do on personal servers or community driven servers, then you also have to be diligent with the security on that, because it's a clear problem. Like there's been issues brought up in workshop maps before. Actually, one of the exploits that I found is a workshop map exploit. It's a map that you can load up. Once the map's loaded, you now have a malicious actor now has a remote code exploit privilege on your computer. So it's been an issue before, but if you're going to take the approach that you want content to be community driven and you bring in all these creators to help create content, well, you need to step up with the security features in the workshop and in the custom servers and be ahead of the game in terms of applying bug fixes and keeping things secure for people to use, right? The fact that these exploits have been known and not fixed for 2 years is fucking ridiculous. And I know I'm talking a lot about the workshop here just because that's kind of a common theme. The workshop and custom servers has always been an issue security wise, even going back all the way to CS 1.6. This new one that came out with the friends invite, it's totally disconnected from that, and it's also a very big deal. Keep in mind it's limited to people on your friends list. But, you know, if you have a big friends list or maybe one of your friends gets compromised, something like that, like it's totally possible to fall victim to that. And since the exploit doesn't require a download, right? It's just a single click and they're in. It's very easy to just, you know, people are going to click the link. You know, you see the invite, you click the link, right? People do that shit all the time. I wanted to talk a little bit about this bug and its write-up in the NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which has an arm called ITL. And ITL is like their kind of security or internet type arm where they identify these exploits. And these types of sites are really used quite often for people in the corporate world where they're working on security on a day-to-day basis. And they'll look at, you know, OWASP or NIST to see how these exploits are rated and their danger and how it can impact, you know, the company that you work for, or maybe what bug fixes are available, what information is out there for this exploit. And this exploit did pop up on NIST, so I'll go over the page for it just to kind of show you guys what things to look for when reading through like a NIST report. Every exploit on NIST gets a dictionary entry just for easy lookup. So for this specific entry, it's CVE 2021 30481, and then it kind of gives a quick overview on the bug and when it was published, when it was last modified. The source was MITRE, which is like a not-for-profit company that kind of identifies exploits. And then the quick description they give is Valve Steam through 2021-0410, when a Source Engine game is installed, allows remote authenticated users to execute arbitrary code because of the buffer overflow that occurs for a Steam invite after one click. Just quickly, a buffer overflow is like a manipulation of a program to write code outside of its regular boundaries, and it's usually accomplished by bad input validation in the program. So programs that are written well will have input validation that won't allow you to write code outside of its memory space. But if you can find an exploit to that, or a vector to get input that's not supposed to be put into the program, that can allow you to do buffer overflow, which allows you to write things outside of the memory of that specified program. So you can write things on a computer that you're not supposed to be able to write to, basically, and use the program as like a pathway to write things on that computer. That's kind of a quick and dirty explanation, but I hope you get the gist of it. If you've ever done anything like homebrew a console, like a Wii or a Wii U or a Nintendo DS or something like that, if you've ever gone through the homebrew process and you're wondering why you're launching these weird programs before being able to install whatever the fuck you want on your console, that's why. Basically, all that homebrew stuff is using buffer overflow. So they find exploits in a program on the device, and then they exploit it to be able to write code that they're not supposed to be allowed to write. So that's why you have to jump through all those hoops. That's like the buffer overflow process when you're homebrewing a console or jailbreaking a console. And then most importantly, here's the base score, which they gave an 8.0, which is a high kind of a threat score. And I'll show you what goes into making that score as well. On the NIST website, when you click the score or the threat level of the exploit, you can go onto their website and then kind of change the fields here like I am, and you can see the score, the overall score, going up and down based on whether it's a complex attack, are privileges required for that attack to take place. If no, then that raises the threat level overall. If you require administrative privileges to perform the attack, then that would lower the threat score of it, right? So depending on the parameters of the exploit, determines whether NIST will score it very dangerous or moderately dangerous or a low danger level. And I just wanted to show like a quick overview on kind of how they come up with this number. So this one they've given an 8.0, which is considered high and concerning. So what does all this mean? To me, it tells me that Valve they just don't fucking care, man. Their business about printing money, and fixing security vulnerabilities doesn't fit into that scope. I don't know, maybe they're very difficult to fix or something, but like I said, it was classified as a buffer overflow, which typically are not that hard to fix. It's usually just increased input validation, or you find out where the attack vector or where the buffer overflow is happening, and you kind of put a stop to it right there. To me, letting a security vulnerability like this exist for over 500 days is fucking negligence, and they should honestly be ashamed of it. I know Valve they're the type of company that just doesn't care about these things, and they're still going to make tons of money, but it just really sucks. I said earlier, it's been an issue with custom maps and custom servers for a long time, and it's been a constant battle, and it's kind of the difference in ecosystems that you can see between Valorant and Counter-Strike. With Valorant, everything's locked down, and that's probably the reason why, right? Like, of course, Riot, I'm sure, would love the community to build all their content for them and host all these servers for them, and Riot barely has to do any work for it, right? But the problem that brings in is that you run into this shit like Valve has, right? Where people are exploiting the software, and then you're constantly doing bug fixes and shit like that, right? So it's a top level decision that you have to make kind of as a company. Do you want the closed ecosystem like Riot and Valorant have chose, where you're much less susceptible to bug exploits and just shenanigans from the community? Or do you want to do kind of open source and then have the community provide you with skins, with maps, with game modes, and all these different great ideas, like the aim maps, the surfing, the fucking the KZ maps? Like, there's just tons and tons of different things you can do on community maps. And you know, like as a Counter-Strike player, when I switched to Valorant, I feel the pain. Like, I had fun doing that shit, but it's a trade-off, right? You can't have all that extra content from the community for free. There's overhead. It costs the company money to apply the bug fixes and spend time keeping things secure, right? Do I think Valve could do a better job at it? Obviously they could, right? The amount of content that they're getting from the community is ridiculous, and I think it's well deserving of a steady hand or a constant security review team to be going over all these exploits and repairing them, right? I think the benefits of being open source like Valve is outweigh the costs. So I actually agree with Valve's approach to software here, but you can't take all the benefits and then not deal with the negative side of it, right? If you're going to take all those benefits, you have to deal with the problems. And that's my issue with Valve. They're not dealing with the software exploits that come with having an open source platform. I kind of use the word open source loosely, but you know what I mean? Like the community maps, the gun modes, and surfing, KZ, all that stuff. Like, you can't take all the good without dealing with the bad, right? So anyways, guys, I think that wraps it up for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a thumbs up if you did, thumbs down if you didn't. And if you'd like to support the channel a little bit more, you can check me out on Patreon. All right, peace.